By 1812, Napoleon's French Empire had 250,000 troops stationed in Spain, bogged down in a war that seemed to have no end. They faced a bitter struggle against the people of Spain, who had taken up arms in a guerrilla war, as well as a remnant of Spain's regular armies and an Anglo-Portuguese force under Lord Wellington. Yet French forces in Spain remained formidable, maintaining firm control of the capital, Madrid, and most major cities. The year began with another great French victory in the south, but Spain and Portugal would soon become a graveyard, not only for young French conscripts, but for the reputations of some of France's most famous generals. Generals you know, Marshal Soult and Marshal Jourdan, had all tasted defeat. Marshal Massena had been recalled in disgrace. Marshal Louis Gabriel Suchet, however, was the exception. French generals in Spain were notorious for their looting. Soult, based in Andalusia, was perhaps the worst, estimated to have stolen 1.5 million francs worth of art from Spanish monasteries and churches. But as governor of Aragon, Marshal Suchet behaved very differently. He enforced strict discipline among his troops, punishing any who tried to steal or extort money from the Spanish, while treating local authorities with respect. He combined his hearts and minds strategy with ruthless military action against the guerrillas and was able to establish firm control of Aragon. In June 1811, after a particularly bloody assault, Suchet captured the port city of Tarragona, for which Napoleon rewarded him with a marshal's baton. The emperor then sent him reinforcements and ordered him to take Valencia. Suchet first routed a much larger Spanish army that attacked him at Saguntum, before laying siege to Valencia. The city was crowded with Spanish troops and refugees, and to avoid starvation, General Blake surrendered Valencia on the 8th of January, 1812. The French took 18,000 prisoners, including 23 generals and nearly 500 guns, a devastating blow to the Spanish cause. But to reinforce Suchet, Napoleon had stripped troops from other armies in Spain and then withdrew 25,000 of the best soldiers for his imminent invasion of Russia. As a result, French forces in Spain were now severely overstretched, just as Wellington prepared to strike. Spanish guerrillas kept Wellington well informed of French movements. Learning that the forces facing him in western Spain had been greatly weakened, he decided to go on the offensive, to strike before the French could concentrate against him. On the same day Valencia fell, Wellington laid siege to Ciudad Rodrigo, on the Portuguese-Spanish frontier. Eager to take the city before Marshal Marmont could march to its relief, he ordered an assault after just 10 days. It succeeded, though Major General Crawford of the Light Division was among 300 killed. Wellington then marched south to besiege the much more strongly defended city of Badajoz. An assault was launched on the night of the 6th of April. The first wave attacking the main breach was slaughtered, but what had been planned as a diversionary attack on the city's castle, using scaling ladders, succeeded, and the city soon fell. The storming of Badajoz cost the British 3,700 casualties. In the aftermath, the surviving troops went on a rampage, drinking, looting, raping, and killing more than 100 Spanish civilians, before British officers finally restored order. Wellington had now secured the two main routes between Spain and Portugal. He sent his most reliable subordinate, General Hill, with a small Anglo-Portuguese force, to destroy the bridge over the Tagus River at Almaraz, a vital link between Marmont's army of Portugal and Soult's army of the south, as the next usable bridge was 90 miles east at Toledo. The bridge was heavily guarded by forts and redoubts, but Hill led a swift and daring assault. The French defenses were taken by surprise. The bridge and all their engineering equipment were destroyed at the cost of just 177 casualties. Wellington was now ready to begin his advance into Spain. Spanish regular forces and guerrilla bands began operations to tie down as many French troops as possible, while Sir Home Popham's naval raiding force made diversionary attacks on French coastal targets from the Bay of Biscay. Within 4 days, Wellington reached Salamanca, as Marmont, outnumbered, withdrew behind the Douro River. But when reinforcements arrived, Marmont crossed the river again. For 6 days, he tried to march around Wellington's flank, but the British general matched him move for move, their armies marching in parallel, often within sight of each other. On the 7th day, Marmont made a fatal blunder. On the morning of the 22nd of July, Wellington's army occupied high ground 4 miles south of Salamanca. Marmont wasn't interested in a direct assault. He still sought to outflank Wellington, threaten his line of retreat to Portugal, and force him to withdraw. Around 8 a.m., the French seized a hill known as the Greater Arapil, which Marmont made his observation point. The French army began to swing around behind him. Marmont had convinced himself that Wellington was an overly cautious commander who would not risk attack. The hills concealed most of Wellington's army, and when Marmont saw dust clouds to the west, he assumed it was Wellington's baggage train leaving Salamanca to start a retreat. But in reality, it was the British 3rd Division and a Portuguese cavalry brigade moving up to strengthen Wellington's flank. He was not planning a retreat. He was preparing to attack. Around 2 p.m., Marmont ordered 5 infantry divisions waiting in the woods behind him to march west, to cut off Wellington's imagined retreat. General Marquin's 5th Division, in the lead, stopped to engage what it believed to be the British rear guard in the village of Los Arapiles. General Thomier's 7th Division continued west past it. Wellington watched as the French left flank became dangerously stretched out, an opportunity too good to miss. He galloped 3 miles across country to the 3rd Division to give his crucial orders in person. Many of his staff officers struggled to keep up. On arrival, he instructed the division commander, his brother-in-law, Edward Pakenham, to attack and drive everything before him. The 3 RD Division's advance was hidden by low hills until the last moment. Thomier's division was caught completely off guard and shattered by the sudden assault. Thomier's himself was killed, half his division was killed or captured, and the rest soon put to flight. At this critical moment, Marshal Marmont was struck by a British shell and carried from the field, seriously wounded. His second-in-command, General Bonnet, was himself wounded an hour later, so command passed to General Clausel. 45 minutes after that, the British 5th Division attacked, supported by 2 Portuguese brigades and General Marchant's dragoons. The French saw the cavalry approaching and quickly formed squares, but they were struck first by the British infantry, who unleashed a devastating close-range volley, then charged with bayonets. The French line broke, and Marchant's cavalry charged into the fleeing soldiers, cutting them down in a decisive rout. The French 6th Division was soon caught up in the collapse. Marchant himself was shot from the saddle and killed, but his brigade had helped to destroy 8 French battalions and capture 2 Eagles, an extraordinary feat. Wellington's echelon attack continued as Cole's 4th Division advanced in the center. But Pack's Portuguese brigade was thrown back from the Greater Arapil, and the entire division soon fell into disorder. Despite the devastation of his army's left flank, General Clausel attempted to launch a counterattack on the Lesser Arapil, the hinge of Wellington's position. If he could seize it, there was still a chance to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But the French advance was met by fresh troops from Clinton's 6th Division, who poured disciplined volleys of musket fire into the attacking columns. The French began to falter, then fell back. Their army had lost the will to fight. Soldiers streamed away into the woods behind them. General Ferré's 3rd Division mounted a brave rearguard action to buy time for the rest of the army to escape, but it faced a hopeless task. It was soon outflanked by the British 5th Division, and Ferré himself was killed in the fighting. Only General Foy's 1st Division managed to withdraw in good order. With darkness falling and his troops exhausted, Wellington finally called off the pursuit. He had smashed Marmont's army, taking 7,000 prisoners and killing or wounding another 6,000, a French casualty rate of 25%, more than double his own losses. The next day, dragoons of the King's German Legion attacked the French rear guard and achieved the almost unheard-of feat of charging down a French infantry square, capturing another 1,000 prisoners. Wellington now decided to march on Madrid. King Joseph abandoned the capital and retreated east of Valencia, hoping to join Marshal Suchet. On the 12th of August, Wellington entered Madrid, the scenes of wild celebration. Soult, now at risk of being cut off in Andalusia, abandoned the siege of Cadiz, which had dragged on for 2.5 years, and marched east to join Joseph and Suchet. The following month, Wellington advanced north, pushing the French back from Valladolid and besieging the castle of Burgos. But his army lacked heavy artillery, and the French garrison fought bravely. Meanwhile, powerful French armies were converging from both the north and the south. Wellington himself was now in danger of being trapped. He had no choice but to withdraw. The retreat quickly turned into a desperate forced march through relentless autumn rain. The supply system collapsed, and many starving soldiers resorted to looting food from Spanish villages. Madrid was abandoned and reoccupied by the French on the 1st of November. Wellington had returned to where he'd begun 5 months earlier. Yet despite the campaign's grim conclusion, his offensive into Spain had liberated vast areas of the country and left the French more overstretched than ever before. Reinforced and resupplied, Wellington would return the following year to deliver the final blow to King Joseph's Spanish kingdom. 1812 had seen the tide of war turn, and not just in Spain. Because 2,000 miles to the east, in Russia, catastrophe had engulfed La Grande Armée.